I need people to start thinking about the fact that you don't really feed yourself. You feed your microbiome and it feeds you. When we talk about nutrients being absorbed quickly or not, we need to make sure that we recognize that in that complexity, they are being fed to the microbiome, which is rapidly transforming them, fermenting them in a sense, and then we get fed the components of that. So their diet and is rich in microbiome, ours is not.
Welcome to the Self Care Goddess podcast, where healing stories, practical self care strategies, and science backed tools to regulate stress, feel calm, grounded, and energized come together to help you reclaim your vitality. I'm your host, Rita Savoya, holistic nutritionist, trauma informed breathwork coach, and founder of Breathwork Barista. This podcast is for women who are ready to restore their energy and radiance, reconnect with their bodies, reawaken their inner power, and redefine self care as a way of being. Through science meets soul practices, restorative mind body tools, and real stories of transformation, we'll explore how true well being can help you live with more joy, vibrant health, and authentic connection to yourself and those you love. Take a deep breath in, let it go, and let's begin. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Self Care Goddess podcast with today's theme, your mighty microbiome and its impact on your skin health, aging, and longevity. Some of my favorite topics to talk about. So before I introduce our lovely guest today, as you know, on the Self Care Goddess podcast, let's walk the talk and just tune in with what's going on inside for just a few moments and tune out the outer world. So I invite you, if you can, lower your gaze or even close your eyes and begin to pay attention to those inhales coming in through the nose and exhales coming out of your nose. If you're feeling congested, you can go ahead and breathe out through the mouth. But for today, we'll do in and out through the nose, noticing the slightly cooler air entering your body, and then the warmer air leaving your body. Allowing the exhales to relax your shoulders, your jaw, allowing the tongue to float to the roof of the mouth as you inhale and exhale. And just tuning in for a few moments, checking in with any other areas of your body that you might be feeling some tension. I invite you to use those exhales to soften and relax those tense areas. Continue breathing in and out through the nose, allowing the inhales to expand your belly, your rib cage, and your chest, and the exhales to contract. I now invite you to channel these inhales and exhales into the area of the heart. So breathing in and out of the heart area, energizing this beautiful organ that's keeping you alive. Breathing in and out. And I invite you now to visualize someone that you're grateful for today. Visualize this person as if they're right here in front of you. And I invite you to send them all the love, the gratitude, and the appreciation for being in your life. And on the next inhale, I invite you to turn that gratitude and love towards yourself for being here, taking the time for self-care, listening to this amazing conversation, On your next inhale, slowly flutter your eyes open and come back to us. Thank you for joining us in that quick coherence technique from the Heart Math Institute. So today we have Larry. Oh, Larry, I didn't ask you how to properly pronounce your last name. Weiss? Okay, thank you. Larry Weiss, MD, is the CEO and founder of Weiss Bioscience Incorporated, a San Francisco-based microbiome research and development company and the manufacturer of Symbiome Skincare products. Before that, as the founding chief medical officer at Microbiome, he formulated the first live topical therapeutic and the first probiotic cosmetic. Oh, wow. Very interesting. He has an extensive background in natural products, chemistry, microbiology, clinical medicine, biophysics, pharmaceuticals, and skincare product development. Larry has an MD from Stanford University and a BS in biochemistry from Cornell University. He holds over 20 patents and has published in chemistry, electrophysiology, clinical pharmacology, and the microbiome. When he's not in the lab, Larry enjoys quality time with his children and grandchildren, building connections with others, and has a deep passion for music and the arts. Wow, what a bio. I am so honored to have you here, and I cannot wait to dive deep into this world of the microbiome. So it's getting so much attention, and I can't wait to talk to an expert like yourself. So how are you today?
I'm doing great, and thank you very much for inviting me in that kind introduction.
Thank you for being here. So, a little bit more about your personal journey. I mean, you've done so much and you're continuing to do so much and contribute to this world of the microbiome and all its beautiful applications. So, tell us a little more, what has influenced this mission that you're on?
Well, I started my journey, as you said in the bio, as a natural products chemist at Cornell. Just very interested in the myriad of things that plants make and why they make them and how they might fit into this web of life. I then came out here to California to Stanford for medical school, trained in internal medicine, intensive care medicine. I'm board certified in anesthesia. I've been an academic. Anyone who was paying attention in the 80s and 90s had to notice there was a growing burden of diseases that had one thing in common: they all had an inflammatory component. And whereas we spent most of our focus finding ways to treat those diseases, the unasked and still unanswered question is exactly why was it growing so quickly? And it has tripled in the past 30 years. So if you look at the diseases that we think of, cancer, heart disease, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, all of these are inflammatory diseases. They have an important inflammatory component. And as I said, most of our effort has been finding ways to treat the disease. We poke around in the mechanism of the disease, we find a way to introduce a novel, patentable foreign substance to ameliorate the symptoms of diseases that we don't actually understand. And I became fascinated with what was going on there because it was accelerating that quickly. Then, right around 2000, see, before this, we had started a thing called the Human Genome Project. We developed the tools to sequence DNA very quickly, and we pointed it at our favorite subject, us. And what we discovered is a whole lot of us wasn't us. It was microbial. And this really started a revolution in microbiology, which at that point had really become a very sleepy little backwater. It was very observational, what things looked like and some of the things we could see that they do. But now we could sequence their DNA and understand them at a much deeper level. And as this science progressed on, it became very clear to a lot of us that this was involved. Changes in our relationship to the microbial world had more to do with our underlying health and physiology than simply the idea of infection. And then the key factor started in 2013 with the idea that was the formation of Aobiome, which was there were bacteria that used to be part of our physiology, and we lost them. And when we lost them, this had implications for our general health. Now, And that resulted in the first microbiome cosmetic. It was a live topical application of a bacteria called ammonia oxidizing bacteria. And we found it did indeed have implications for our health. But if you want to test the hypothesis that we used to have it, you need to find a group of hunter-gatherers and study their microbiome. That's very easy to say, but it's not particularly easy to do. And over the course of the work, I developed a unique relationship with an individual whose father was an American anthropologist in the 70s and 80s, and whose mother was one of the subjects of his study, a Yanomami hunter-gatherer living isolated community deep in the Venezuelan Amazon. And one day he called me up and said, "How would you like to study the microbiome of my family?"
Wow.
And this started an odyssey back in 2017, and we have what makes them interesting is they don't have any of the diseases that we have. In terms of their skin, acne, eczema, rosacea, and psoriasis don't exist anywhere in these populations. In terms of their coronary arteries, their heart disease, they don't have heart disease. In fact, in their 70s and 80s, their coronary arteries are cleaner than ours in our teens. Interestingly, they don't sunburn and they don't get skin cancer. And that's not a melanin issue. People with darker skin can indeed sunburn and get skin cancer. I do it better than they do, and they don't do it at all. And in fact, as far as we can tell, they don't get cancer at all. So they live a pretty much disease-free life. And so we ran and sponsored 3 expeditions, and we have built the most comprehensive model of a biologically intact human microbiome in a disease-free population that's representative of what our species spent most of our time on this planet doing. And we were foragers. We were creatures of scarcity. We lived in harmony with our environment. This population has lived in that place for about 12,000 years sustainably, something we do not know how to do. And they live at the carrying capacity of their ecosystem, and they're very good at it. And so this becomes a reference point. This is what it looked like when everything was intact and was working. And so we can use that reference point to compare where we are right now to see how we can do something we never had the opportunity to do before. See, everything I train to do is to fix broken stuff. You come in to see the doctor, you've got something broken, we find a way to fix it for you as best we can. But now that I have this reference point, we can do something we could never do before, which is we can restore health. You can't restore something if you don't know what it looked like.
Yeah.
Number one, and none of us look like that. We've lost 80% of our microbiome.
Wow.
And what's more important than who we lost is what they were doing. So not only did we develop a census of what's changed in terms of who was there, we were able to look deeply and see what they were doing and what functional pieces that we lost. And what we've developed here is I can't put the lost microbiome back. Well, there is a way to do it. Go live in the jungle for a couple of weeks. Of course, you might have an intact microbiome, but we'd probably be dead. We're just not very good at that. But we figured out a way to actually build ferments using essentially the missing microbes from that environment, allow them to ferment just the same way in nutrition. You know the value of fermented food. Fermentation is the connective tissue of life. So we built precision ferments and we use those to make these products. And that's where we are today. But I want to make a very important point here. People call me an expert. The role of the expert is to know the limitations of our knowledge and understanding. And the biggest myth about the microbiome is that we know anything about it yet. It's still very early and very complicated. These microbial ecosystems have been around for billions of years. Animals just showed up about 600 or 700 million years ago. Primates about 7 million, and our species generously is about 500,000. The complexity of these ecosystems is immense. And so we are at the very outset of this. And so everything that we're doing right now is part of that exploratory phase. And it's a very exciting time to be a scientist and working in this particular field and working with some of the absolutely brilliant and amazing people I get to do this, and then be able to find a way to transform it into something that can make a meaningful impact on people's lives.
Exactly. Wow. Oh, so much to unpack. Thank you for that. You're a great storyteller, by the way. I was like, wow.
Thank you.
I was already visualizing all of those different eras in my head. So thank you for that. So I do have a question. How do we lose the AO biome? Now I can presume that it's the processed foods, it's the nutritionists didn't even want to say it's the crappy foods we've been ingesting, antibiotics that we're totally overdoing with. So is that part of it?
Well, it is. And the thing that's happened recently, but it's certainly accelerated it. But we took ourselves out of context. As I said, we were creatures of scarcity. We lived in the environment. We didn't practice anything that we can think about as hygiene. So we were harmonized with the microbial environment. You know, an important question we should deal with this right up front is people say to me, what is the microbiome? And what you'll hear is people say, well, that's all the microbes that live on and in you. And generally, that's a pretty unsatisfying answer for most people for three reasons. The first one is I'm asking you to develop a concept, a belief around this invisible force, this invisible thing that has immense influence over you. And that sounds like the purview of religion. Then the second thing is that most people already have a bias. Their relationship to the microbial world has been conditioned that it's trying to do bad things to us or kill us. There's an adversarial relationship that has been baked into that. And whereas that is the case, and if we have time, I will talk about why that is actually such a profound misunderstanding. But the third thing is then they go over to Dr. Google and come away completely confused. The simplest answer to what is the microbiome is it's you. It's just the part you can't see or feel. It's as much you as your skin is, your heart, or your lungs, your kidney, or your liver. It's an essential part of our physiology. We don't exist without it, and it depends on us for its existence as well. But they are not two separate things. It's not you and your microbiome. That's an abstraction that doesn't actually encompass the intimacy and the importance of the relationship. So when we left living as foragers, deeply immersed in the environment, when we were there, we were harmonized. We actually harmonized with the environment, and we do it very quickly. When we left that and started living in a built environment, we already cut some of those connections. Now, today, we live in a completely built environment. Most of us spend almost 90% of our time indoors.
Yeah.
And so we're harmonized with one of the most microbial depleted environment.
Right.
Okay, that deals with the skin. With the gut, they never wash their food. It's very interesting, but they know every plant that you can eat, and they also know the ones you can't eat. We need meat, not much, but we need some. We have the dentition of both a carnivore and an herbivore because there are things in meat that we actually need, although not nearly the amount that we eat today. And so as we moved from foragers, all of that food that we ate had its own microbiome. And that was the connection. So when we ate a plant, we didn't wash it off. When the hunter brings in game, they don't wash it off either. And so they're completely harmonized with us. And I want you to keep that in mind because even though we can't see it, and our air is relatively scrubbed of it compared to theirs, in living in a jungle, we are living in a bioaerosol of microbes. And I'll give you a great example. When our expeditioner, his name is David Good, he's the executive director of the Yanomami Foundation. When he goes down there, within about 2 weeks, but when he leaves, he looks like us. We followed his microbiome through the whole journey. He looks like us. Within about 2 weeks of living in his mother's village, he looks like them.
2 weeks, that's all it takes to adapt.
About 2 weeks, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he lives pretty much a traditional lifestyle when he goes down there. And we brought him back on one of these expeditions very, very quickly, 3.5 days. No soap, no shower, no shampoo, no change of clothes. We got him into the lab 3.5 days later, of most of that time being in our environment, about half that time being in our environment. It was completely gone. It had completely reverted. So there is that piece. Then superimpose the one that you've just described, which is the way our diet has changed. You know, we get the microbes we feed. I need people to start thinking about the fact that you don't really feed yourself. You feed your microbiome and it feeds you. When we talk about nutrients being absorbed quickly or not, we need to make sure that we recognize that in that complexity, they are being fed to the microbiome, which is rapidly transforming them, fermenting them in a sense, and then we get fed the components of that. So their diet and is rich in microbiome, ours is not. So both of these things mean that we've lost a substantial amount of. Now, here's how I'd like you to think about this. As I said, we now have the opportunity to restore health.
Yeah.
But if we're going to do that, we need to come to an agreement about what that word means. So when I say health, most of us today think health is not being sick, at least that I know about. But from an evolutionary biology standpoint, health is the resilience in response to stress, the ability to bend. They bend, we break. When we break, what we see is inflammation. If you think about the game Jenga, you know, stack of blocks. When we lived as foragers immersed in the ecosystem, the tower was completed, had all the blocks in. And if each block is a unit of genetic or metabolic capacity, the tower would be about 300 blocks tall, and one of those would be the ones written in our genome, and all the rest are microbial. We have 2 to 3 times as much microbial DNA and information as we do.
Incredible. Yeah.
But as we moved out, we pulled blocks out. We cut connections we didn't know were there. We developed agriculture. We started domesticating animals. We lived in higher population densities. We moved into buildings of one sort or another. And every time we did, there were connections that we didn't see that we cut. The tower still stands, but it's become less resilient.
Mhm.
In the modern era, so many of those blocks are missing. And here's the thing, I can't find them in any of us because what's missing? We're all missing it. It's absent from all of us. And it's very hard to find things you didn't know you were missing in the first place.
Mhm.
But we become very much less resilient. Now, as I told you, I can't put the microbes back. But if I know what they were doing, I can build these precision ferments that replace as much of that function as possible and rebuild the resilience. So that's one component of what has happened to us and why there's such a growing burden of inflammatory disease.
Yeah.
Look, 1 in 4 children has eczema today. That's
Mhm.
tripled in the past 30 years. If you
Mhm.
follow that child for 5 years, 90% are carrying an inhaler. They have 1 or more food allergies. 1 in 36 is on the spectrum. You're a lot younger than I am, but is that the childhood you remember? And the answer is no. And women of reproductive age and older are very concerned because they see these children and grandchildren living a very different childhood than the one that they remember. And they think it's something they're doing or not doing, or doing too much of, or maybe not enough. And they want to make good decisions. And unfortunately, right now, most of the information they're being given is either not helpful or misleading.
Mhm.
And as I said, it's still early, and it's important to recognize, I want to emphasize this right now. There's a general perception out there in the community and also within the ranks of scientists that the things that we work on, the substance of our work, are immutable facts and truths with a capital T. That's not really correct. What we do is we build a model and we use the tools that are available to us to gather evidence. And if we're honest, we take that evidence and we fix our model, and then we do it again. And we do it over and over and over. And the best that we can hope for is something that we think that we know is going to be a gross oversimplification of something that is so complex it's beyond our imagination at this stage. And a whole lot's going to be wrong. And that's how knowledge progresses. And so the idea of certainty, when you're certain, when you think you have a fact or a truth, you blind yourself to that piece of information that is going to come in from someone, perhaps not even in your field, to challenge your model. Science is a disciplined practice of wonder.
Mm.
It is driven by it's
Yes.
driven by our curiosity, our desire to make things better, but it must be tempered by a deep sense of humility.
Mhm.
Our knowledge is finite, our ignorance is necessarily infinite. And with that, we can as a community accept where we are, what we need to do, and do it together. I want to implore people to think of health as a community property, not an individual property. It's very hard to be healthy in a community that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And this is why the people who are changing the world are your audience. These are women make 80% of the buying decisions. We can make those decisions informed by what it is that we know and being circumspect, but by critical thinking, basically trying to understand and recognizing the limits of our knowledge and trying to make good decisions. My daughters will regularly, when they want to go buy something, they'll text me the label and they'll say,
What do you?
and they hate my answer, which is, we don't know, do you need it?
Good answer.
And so this is a much bigger quest. But we started with skin for a very specific reason. And that is because your skin is the biomarker for your health that you see in the mirror every morning. And all of us know this because on days when you feel good, your skin looks better. On days when you don't, not so much. And so if I can start restoring some of the lost function, and you see it in the mirror, now I have your attention. Now we can have a conversation about what's going on and why this is different from other things. You can do that with diet. You do it all the time, but you also recognize that, one, it's a lot harder to change what people put in their mouths when they put them what they put on their skin.
Yeah.
And
They're more motivated for sure to adapt to cleaner products than there are with food.
Well, we know what we should do, and then we do the other stuff because it tastes good. And basically because, as you know, food has been engineered using salt, sugar, and fat to take our biology and use it against us. So it's very difficult. It's very difficult. But the same rules apply. If someone asked me what is the best thing they can do for their gut microbiome, it's probably the same answer you give them, which is eat more fermented food. Less sugar, more fermented food. That's the best thing you can do today. There are a lot of probiotics out there. Most of them are not validated. Only a handful are. So I don't know if they work or not. I know that we don't know if they work or not. I know that a lot of the claims are vague enough. So it's improved, my bowel habits or things like that. Well, you would get the same thing from fermented food. And fermented food is validated. So we've taken the same approach to skin. But that's because I can see the results in a matter of days or a week or two on your skin. And that gives you your attention. Look, if you could look in the mirror and see your coronary arteries, we'd eat differently.
Yes, exactly. I agree. So you mentioned that we cannot bring back these lost microbiomes, right? Or these lost.
That is correct. Not living in, we're an industrialized society. We live indoors. We spend most of our time indoors. And even if we could, we'd wash it off anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on hand sanitation and sanitizing?
Well, okay. We live in our population density and our mobility is such that an infection, most of these being viral, not all of them, but most of them being viral, have reverse engineered our behavior and can travel exceptionally quickly. You've seen what's happening in this country with measles when we stop vaccinating people. Measles is the prototype. It is the most infection. So hand washing is different because we put our hands in parts of the world that we generally don't put other parts of our body. And then we touch our face and our children and everyone else. So hand hygiene is a completely separate piece. That's something that if we're going to live in this world with our lost resilience, we have to be very careful about. So good hand hygiene. But what I'll tell you is soap and water
is enough.
It works great. But the problem is we don't build our public spaces for that. How often do you see hand washing stations?
Yes, exactly. So you are driven to use those alcohol.
And keep in mind, in a lot of the world, they don't even have water to drink, safe water to drink. So, this is something that we need to start thinking about again as a community, as a species. That is the easiest place to slow things down by small changes in human behavior.
Yes.
But, In the absence of solving that with hand washing station clean water, the easiest thing for us to do is, hand sanitizers, the alcohol-based ones. Recommendation to your viewers, the ones that have a compound called benzalkonium chloride in it, do not use those, and certainly don't use them on your children. That compound is an immune adjuvant. It amplifies the immune system's response to allergens and things like that. It's not a chemical to bring into your house.
Right.
The
Thank you.
alcohol one, the alcohol, soap and water, or the
Yeah.
alcohol-based hand sanitizers. There was some other chemistry that was out there, but it's no longer available. So those are the things that I would recommend to
Thank
it.
you.
And common sense. It's actually not that complicated.
Yes, I agree. So in terms of, we talked a little bit about the allergies and other diseases or conditions that these young children have. What are your thoughts, your opinions on, can we reverse this by adding more fermented foods or fermented products? Can they be reversed?
Yeah, I believe that, well, we can reverse it, I believe, substantially. I don't know, some of these are diseases of industrialized society, but we can make a big difference by rebuilding our resilience. And that requires, as I said, you can't restore something if you don't know what it looked like. So our efforts to understand this, there's probably only 30 or 40,000 of these hunter-gatherer, forager humans left on this planet, and they're critically endangered, and most people don't think they're going to survive climate change and other things that are trying. So the clock is ticking. So to the extent we can understand what it looks like, that gives us that reference point. And then with that understanding, finding ways, again, our approach has been using precision ferments. I can't put the bugs back, but I can get them to express these missing metabolic pathways, generate those. And, what these things end up looking like. Here's an example. This is one of the oils, a fermented oil.
Okay.
And we use those to make, these products.
Right. And so what's the ingredients of these products that you
So if I ask you what's in the any of the fermented foods, the big stuff, the lactic acid, things like that, But once you start looking at it closely, using things like high resolution, untargeted mass spectrometry, the complexity explodes. I'm going to use a metaphor. Then NASA did this study called the Deep Field Experiment, and they pointed the Hubble telescope at the darkest piece of space they could find. And after a year and a half, what they found is 10,000 galaxies in the darkest piece of space. So the answer to the question of what's in these ferments is a lot. And we don't know yet. But what we do know is that's the currency of life. These bacteria have been around for billions of years. This is a microbial planet, almost all the life on it, and it's ancient, and they're the most successful form of life. We are not the pinnacle of evolution. We are the spoiled and arrogant newcomers. We are the beneficiaries of a 4 billion-year-old biologic trust fund from which we emerged, which nurtures us and gives us health, and we seem absolutely determined to squander. We need to put ourselves back into context. We took ourselves out of context. And I could blame Descartes on this when he said, because we think we're different and we have dominion, he turned us into a noun. We were a thing. We were a human being. And we, among all these other things, we had dominion over those because we thought. We're not really a noun, we're a verb. We're a complex process of processes immersed in a much larger, ancient microbial process and energy and matter and information are flowing through this all the time. And as we cut those connections and isolate ourselves from this because we have dominion, we compromise our resilience and we do something else. We start making stuff that never was here before. So the second thing that's happened to us, in addition to losing our resilience, is the thing called the exposome. And that's a fancy word for all the stuff we're exposed to. And that's not just all the chemicals, the stuff in our food, the pesticides, microplastics, all of these other things. It's the stress. It's all of these things. So our resilience went down, the stress, the exposome went up, and we're seeing an explosion of inflammatory disease.
Yes.
And we're responding to this, and we have to, don't get me wrong, with treatments that essentially poison our immune response,
Even
but
more.
it enables us to continue to do dangerously outdated things. We need to make better choices. We need to put ourselves back into the biology from which we emerge. And look, I'm gonna illustrate this for you and for your listeners. I'm going to give you a word, and I want you to call forth an image in your head, and don't tell me what it is. Okay?
Okay.
Ready? Here's your
Yes.
word: nature. Tell me when you have an image.
Okay.
Got any people in that image?
Sorry?
Do you have any people in that image?
No.
I have done this in front of 3,000 people. No hands go up. I've done it in front of people. I have done it in front of 4 or 5 times, and no hands go up. We took ourselves out of context, and we did that. We cut connections, and those connections were the wellspring of the resilience that as a species meant that we, the interesting piece about them is if you look at their modal age of death, it's about the same as ours. But we need 15,000 pharmaceuticals to get there, and they need none.
Yeah.
And so we have put ourselves there with an existential identity crisis that says we are apart from, rather than apart from, this ancient global microbial planet on which we live. So fermentation, as I said, is the connective tissue. And what we've done with the Symbiome products is we built these ferments and we made them into things that people are used to using, skincare.
Yeah.
And by the way, it is very simple. So I'll give you an example.
So what do you have? You have creams, you have serums, what?
We do. So this is the cream, and this is, by the way, our brand new packaging. So this cream has 4 ingredients in it, and one of them is water. The other ingredients, both of them are ferments. 2 of them are ferments.
Mhm.
And so they have all of this missing metabolic material that our microbiome was going to provide for us. And when we do that, what happens is, imagine that it's starving. Your skin is starving, your microbiome that's left is starving, and we start feeding it. And now it rebuilds the resilience. So the things that would become disease, we have all the machinery to prevent that from happening. It's just not working.
Right.
And so
when you say they're topical, how long does it last, the replenishing? Is it like, having a meal gets digested and assimilated, or how does it work with the skin?
Yeah, so these are like, pretty much any other moisturizer or cream, twice a day. One, what I suggest is when you cleanse your skin, and we have a cleanser as well, do that at night. We're putting things like sunscreen and makeup and stuff on. You should wash that off at night. But your skin has all these self-regulatory mechanisms, one of which is, sebum, skin oil.
Mm.
And because about 85-90% of us go through acne, something which 0% of hunter-gatherers get.
Really? Even though we say that it's a hormonal issue, right? Especially for women.
Yeah, and I'm going to get to that in a second. It doesn't happen. So that oil that our skin produces is part of the way our skin protects itself and also feeds the microbes that take care of us. When we wash it off, now listen, as we go through puberty, things turn up and you get more oil, but it's kept in balance. There are complex feedback loops. When you wash it off, the feedback loop thinks, where'd that go? And makes more. So yes, hormones will increase the production of sebum, but if you really want to ramp up the production, just keep washing it away. So we have built 2 cleansers, but the one called the Renewal, that is actually an oil-based cleanser. It will take care of the makeup and the sunscreen and just, the pollution and everything at the end of the day. It's like it has the consistency of honey. You smear it on dry skin, let it sit there for a minute or a few minutes, almost like a mask, and then rinse it off with water. And it has not stripped off the oil because, interestingly enough, the oil component in these ferments, and we make them by sustainably harvesting plants from that same type of ecosystem. So it has a microbiome that's very, very similar to the microbiome we have as hunter-gatherers, and allow it to ferment the same way you make wine. Grind it up, allow it to ferment. It can take anywhere from weeks to months, and then you centrifuge off the oil. The triglyceride and fatty acid composition of these ferments looks very curiously a lot like the triglyceride and fatty acid composition of our skin oil. I do not think that is an accident. I think those are biologically optimized compositions that are serving the common chemistry that underlies all life on this planet. And so it doesn't leave it stripped off. It doesn't trigger that cycle. And then in the morning, when you wake up, you don't need to wash your face again. And then in the morning, what we have is the other product, and I actually think I do have it here. Yes, I do. It's right here. This is our best-selling product. It's called The Answer.
Is it a cleanser?
Okay. And no, this is a serum. Okay. And we all have plenty of stem cells, but like our microbiome, it is starved and stressed. And so this is stem cell conditioned media. The same way we have ferments from microbes, you take stem cells and you essentially allow them to produce all their stuff. We don't put the cells on. You don't need stem cells. We all have plenty of stem cells, or we wouldn't have skin.
Mm.
I want to talk about, skin turnover time. Your skin renews itself constantly.
Mhm.
And when you're a baby, it's going to renew itself in about 4 weeks. When you're as old as I am, it can be 3 to 4 months.
Mm.
The stem cell conditioned media, and this product is 50% human stem cell conditioned media. It's one of the most studied ingredients in all of skincare because it was developed for therapeutic purposes. And there's 40 years of research behind it. So this is the product. It's a serum. It's got six ingredients in it. I formulate all these things here in the lab. All these formulas are meant to be minimally formulated. Less is more.
Yeah.
And most of them are formulated with what we call biologically intact ingredients. I don't purify this any further. It's been biologically optimized. Same thing with all of these ferments. There's peptides and exosomes and fatty acids and all kinds of stuff, but it was optimized already.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't take us with our minimal understanding of these things to fix
it to the higher intelligence.
And when we put things back that we're missing, what we see is an increase in resilience and a decrease in the types of problems that come from a loss of resilience.
Right.
I can't really do very much about our exposome. As I was driving in here this morning, there was a discussion about microplastics and fleeces and stuffed animals we give our children and things like this. And I can't have much of an influence over how those things and all the chemistry we're exposed to and the stuff in our diet. But if I can rebuild your resilience, so we start with skin.
Yeah.
And so the recommended regimen is use the renewal cleanser at night, then put this on, a couple of drops of this,
the serum,
and then you can put this on top. We also have some of the oils are just as oils. This is actually my favorite. You see the color?
Yeah, it's a nice, beautiful golden color.
So what we've discovered is one of the things that we lost is they had a yeast that was part of their microbiome that made retinoids.
Wow.
Okay, we don't have it at all, and not just the retinoids that you and I think of, the retinol, retinal, and retinoic acid. A whole spectrum of them, because the way retinoids, these essential vitamin A components are made is carotenoids, these colored compounds that you see in carrots and berries and things like that. They have an enzyme that cuts those in half, and when it does, that's where those are retinoids. So it's not just the ones we know, it's a whole spectrum of them. So it doesn't need us to purify it or fix it. And so that's what you're seeing here in that color, and apply that afterwards. And again, the same thing in the morning. We actually also have an eye cream. This one is a favorite again, new packaging. And this one has 5 ingredients in it. I think that's correct. 3 of them are ferments and 1 of them is water. And this one has a chemistry that, increases blood flow. It's got all sorts of materials for that chemistry in it that restores the resilience of the thinner tissue that we have
Yeah, under our eyes. Yes.
But it's a very simple regimen. And I would be remiss, even though 30% of our customers are men, which I find really interesting. We've also worked with another brand called Octo, and this is a men's product.
Mm. And what is it? Sorry?
It's a cream.
Great.
It's a single product. Men, we are simpler characters.
Yeah.
We want one product. We
Yeah.
don't want several. At least we'll see.
Thank
So again, the
So-
same sort of formulation thesis, which is simple formulas, biologically intact materials that are built on the model of what it looked like when everything was working.
Amazing. Congrats. I can't wait to try these products. So for those people listening out there, are these products for everyone, or there are some people that these products are not for?
No, they're pretty much for everyone. And you're going to see this a big move in skincare for quote unquote personalization.
Mm-hmm.
In the practice of medicine, we call this getting a diagnosis. Okay. And that's very much on the side of things that I described before, which is you have a problem. Here's treatment for your problem. By the way, I'm skeptical of this personalization approach. I think it's more marketing than science. Maybe someday it won't be the case, but I think that, the ability, what you want from that is you want it to be able to stack the deck. So when you make a decision and you buy a product, it's going to work for you. Here's what I want all of your listeners to think about. Every time you buy a product, I don't care if it's skincare or anything else, you're doing a science experiment on yourself and your family. Now, we don't keep records of it, we should. And the question is that a good decision? Because ultimately, after talking to lots and lots of customers, what people really want is they want to make good decisions.
Exactly.
They want the information, healthy, good decisions. And everyone's very busy. They don't want to have to become experts in the area, which means they need information they feel they can trust. And unfortunately, one of the things that has happened is that trust has been badly stressed, credibility. I would ask you, when you see a product and it makes claims, do you believe those claims? You don't have to answer that. I know the answer. And so how do we rebuild that credibility? And I think we do that as a community, not as customer and producer, because that sounds a lot like wealth transfer. And what I'm interested in is health transfer. So we're trying to build a community of people with a shared set of beliefs and values that really want to see these problems solved. And I tell you, it is not a simple proposition. Science is complicated and expensive and surprising and wonderful. And I get to work with some of the most interesting people that you've ever met in doing it. We have to, as a group, decide that this is important.
Yes.
Because this is a truthful statement. At some point, everything we eat, everything we put on our skin, our agriculture, and our healthcare is going to be transformed for the better by things that we still have yet to learn about our relationship with this ancient global microbial planet, of which we are a very recent and rather destructive expression. And the amount of time it's going to take to get there is going to be determined by our insistence that we focus on doing that. And this is why I say the people who are changing the world are your listeners, you. It's by and large, women of reproductive age and older who are seeing things going on in their children and grandchildren and are scared and want things to be better.
Yeah.
And they want to see change, and they also want to see change they can believe in. And so,
see the results
we are a skincare brand, but we're much bigger.
Yes, I agree. And thank you for those amazing insights. And so is there common advice you tend to give, let's say a woman in her midlife?
Eat more fermented food. That's what I tell people. Okay.
Yeah.
Less sugar, more fermented food. Find stuff you like. So an interesting study was done at Stanford about 3 years ago in the Sonnenberg's lab. And they did a 10-week trial with a group of, they called them healthy, I'm just going to call them non-sick adults. And they profiled their microbiome and their immune response. And And half of them got 10 weeks of high fiber, and the other half got 10 weeks of fermented food. There wasn't that much of a change in the high fiber group, but the fermented food group, 19 biomarkers for inflammation were reduced. Gut microbiome diversity was significantly increased, and it wasn't increased by the addition of the microbes from the fermented food. It was microbes that were there but were so depleted that they were below the limits of detection. But when they were fed by the fermented food, the ecosystem bloomed.
Yeah, exactly. So then what are your thoughts? Because you mentioned earlier that prebiotics, probiotics are recommended or not recommended. I mean, the jury's still out. So what are your thoughts on those?
Well, we need more
Fermented.
validated. Well, we definitely need more fermented. We need more validated. We need more
Okay.
evidence, better information.
Okay.
Again, the best way to get that is to have
Right.
what you're doing now, educating your listeners,
Mhm.
say, those are the products I want to buy. Because if that's the case, then we will get there faster.
So what are your favorite fermented foods, Larry?
My breakfast is Greek yogurt
Uh-huh.
I live in a place where I can get great produce year
Yep.
round. So blueberries, blackberries, raspberry, whatever I can throw it on, chia seeds.
Nice. Nice.
Okay. It's delicious. It's easy. I like kefir, or if you want to pronounce it correctly, which will sound like an affectation, you can say kefir, but then no one will know what you're talking about. Kimchi, in the same building that I'm in here, there's a new startup business making kimchi. I think it's called Volcanic Kimchi. Find ones that you like. Start your children on them early.
Yes.
Number two, less sugar. Okay?
And why is that?
Sugar is such a pro-inflammatory compound in terms of the way your microbiome works on. A whole bunch of the bugs have a thing called a glucose transporter. And that, if there is sugar and it cuts the sucrose or the fructose and it gets glucose from it, it will pump it, and that fuels their metabolic processes. And most of those are pro-inflammatory. Look, we are wired to find salt, sugar, and fat. We needed salt to survive. Sugar and fat are high caloric value. Remember, we were foragers. We were creatures of scarcity. They're not that common in the ecosystem. They're bees. They make honey. There's fruit that has it in it. But we were wired to find it because it had high caloric value. Same thing with fat. But what's happened is our industrialized food system has found a way to combine salt, sugar, and fat into what it calls the bliss point. You want to know what that is? That's a bag of Cheetos. Okay?
Yeah, Doritos.
And when you put those things together, there's no satiety. You can eat the whole bag.
Yeah.
And then that impact on your health, but more importantly on the structure of your microbiome. If sugar was a new drug, we would not be able to get it approved today.
Yeah.
It's that inflammatory. So moving us towards things that are more biologically intact and less processed, that is a reasonably safe bet. Now, I said something before and I want to emphasize it. What you don't hear from me is certainty about anything, because none of us are entitled to certainty. We need to maintain an open mind for that new information, which is going to improve our understanding. We be careful about suffering from what I call hardening of the categories. So if we can do that, so when someone comes along and they express certainty about something, I find some certainty, the certainty that they're probably wrong. And so take this is where we are today, but here's what we do know. And this is one of the reasons why looking at these populations that live a much healthier existence than we do, and seeing what they're doing, that type of evidence is important. And how we translate that into a modern world, recognizing that it's not a simple thing to do, that has a value that's very different from, we make something new in the lab. A lot of the stuff that we're carrying in us didn't exist anywhere on the planet 50 or 100 years ago.
Yeah.
So we have no idea how that's going to impact us. So in terms of what you select to bring into your household, what you select to put on your skin, what you select to eat,
It's an
The more we
experiment.
can go
Yeah.
back, the original probiotic, Eli Melchnikov, over 100 years ago, noticed that Bulgarian shepherds lived a longer, healthier life, and they ate fermented milk, yogurt. And that started a craze, believe it or not, which is to some extent still extant today. These types of fermented materials for the foundations. The first recommendation I would make to them is you, for yourself, for your family, eat them. You can make them. Making fermented food is easy
Easy,
and it's
yeah.
fun.
Mhm.
And it's, we talked about before, how ideas and products can change your behavior. And so it's the art of doing this. There's lots of great books about doing it. It's a great project to do with kids and for
Yes.
yourself. And all of these things start rebuilding remember, those connections. The one thing I know with some degree of certainty, not real certainty, is that the biggest lesson from the microbiome is everything is connected.
Yes. Yes.
And those
That's why you call
connections
it
are
the connective tissue.
That's right. And those connections are ancient and microbial. And so everything that we've done with these products, this is 7 years of research. We're publishing some of this in Nature Communications coming up soon.
Beautiful.
Everything we've done with this is not been easy, but it makes sense. It's rewarding, and we're continuing to learn. This is why, I don't think of the people who use our products as customers. I think of them as our community.
Mm-hmm.
And we make ourselves accessible to them. We welcome the questions. We can learn from each other, and most important, we can all get healthy together.
Thank you. This is wow. It's been beautiful, Larry. Thank you so much. I do want to wrap up with a few fire questions, rapid fire questions, so that we get to know you a little bit more. But thank you. It's been very, very enlightening, very educating to know a little bit more deeper that we can build that resilience through food, what we put on our skin, by amazing products that you have created and are continuing to create. And yes, I urge the listeners and viewers to really see if you can, if this is something for you, it probably is, give it a go, experiment with it as well. And so just very quickly before we close, what is the best advice that you've ever been given?
Curate the people you spend time with.
Beautiful.
When my children went to college, I told them to major in great professors.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I agree. I agree. So what is the most influential book that you've read? This is probably a difficult one. And if it is, you can just give me the most recent book.
Well, I'm a obsessive reader. I listen to books now. My daughter is a writer, and she told me I have to put that. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that literature is something. So a book that I have read several times and keep coming back to because of its description of the human condition is 100 Years of Solitude
Nice.
by
Very
Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
very nice. Well, thank you. What I do is actually collate these and then share them with our viewers and listeners as recommended reads at the end of.
If you haven't read this book, read this book.
Thank you. I will. I'm almost done mine. So yes. So what are your top 3 non-negotiable self-care habits that you do on a daily basis?
Walk the dogs. We have a couple of dachshunds, miniature long hair dachshunds. Walk the dogs. They make me smile and they get me outdoors. That's the first one. The second one is to be kind. And I would say the third one here is I love to cook.
Nice.
So I see each meal that I prepare as a process, as a practice, as a ritual. And we're married 43 years as of 2 days ago. And so this is the substance, the glue of the life that we've built together, the way that we care for each other. So I would broaden that to say, care for the people who are important to you.
I agree. Thank you. That's beautiful. So where can people find you or your products? Where is the best way that we can get a hold of these? amazing.
You can get the products from Symbiome, SYMBIOM.com, and I will talk to them and get your readers a discount code.
Yes, and
that
we'll
you can
add the
take.
discount code. Yes, on the show
Okay.
notes.
For
Thank you for
men,
that.
this one is at Octo Skincare, OCTO skincare.com. We'll get that for you as well. And they're on Amazon as well. So that's where they can find them.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I appreciate you and your time and this beautiful energy that you've exchanged, the information. And I just want to wish you the best of luck moving forward. I can't wait to stay in touch, to try the products myself and just keep feeding or increasing that resilience by really feeding the microbiome with different, whether it's through foods or what I put on my skin. And I'm urging our listeners and viewers to do the same. Thank you so much. Have a beautiful rest of the day.
Thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for tuning in to the Self-Care Goddess podcast. If today's episode inspired you, share it with another woman who's ready to reclaim her vitality and lead from within. To continue your journey, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and connect with me on ritasavoya.com. Until next time, remember, self-care isn't selfish, it's your superpower. Take a deep breath in, exhale, and keep rising. Ciao for now.